Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics and Silicon Curtain co-stream production live shenanigans, get together. Let's talk about Ukraine and all sorts. In fact, we are going to have a little bit of a chat about all sorts today because all sorts is going on. Jonathan, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Another no expenses spared live stream direct from our spare rooms. Yeah. No, good.
Absolutely.
Good.
This is my spare room. I pretty much live here now.
You inhabit it. Well, you've got it kitted out slightly more idiosyncratic than I have. Although people might notice in the background, this is now fully man-caved. I've got bookshelves on either side. I've got my little YouTube trophy. I've got some nice Lego Star Wars going on. And there's even a sofa behind where I can just sit and I can actually read. So it's proper man cave now, plus a nice little auto cue on a stand. So it's, yeah.
Jonathan, are you being sexist there? Like, man cave has that bookshelves, like women can't read. No,
that's not
you misogynistic bastard. Sorry, can I just, on the behalf of all the women watching this, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but can I just apologize for Jonathan thinks just outrageous insinuation that women don't have bookshelves because they can't read.
There's no reason why a woman cave wouldn't be decked out with books. It doesn't have to be.
Not what I took from what you said.
Doesn't have to be pink and full of cushions and whatever. I mean, I made no insinuations about what a woman cave would look like.
He's saying it now. Yeah. Outrageous. Anyway, welcome everybody to the stream. We hopefully will be joined by, Andrew Perpetua. He's in the live chat. I've sent him a link on his I hope I have on his Twitter, so he can check that out and join in at his leisure. I thought today we could start by talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and not because it's just a huge American scandal, but actually there's a possibility that it is connected to, or he is connected to, Russia in some ways. Now, I'm just at the beginning of looking into this, so I don't have all of the answers at my fingertips, but there are a few interesting things to look at. You were, just before we came live, telling me that you were speaking to JP Lindsley,
yes,
who is an American conservative journalist based in Ukraine. What was he talking about?
So he was saying, look, no commentary on the validity of whether there's, scandal there or not. He was saying the timing does not feel coincidental. Suddenly, the Epstein thing kind of blows up, and it just happens to coincide with the point where Trump is changing his language towards Ukraine, changing his stance, it seems, and also changing his attitude towards Putin slightly. I think he's starting to get somewhat frustrated. There are many people in the comments who go, yes, well, but he's an asset, he's an agent, he's whatever. We don't know that for sure, even though his behavior up until now has clearly been to the benefit of Moscow. Let's see what he does now. But the point there was, this doesn't feel coincidental. It's also curious that there's been another rash of articles attacking Zelenskyy, calling him out as becoming a tyrant. Now, I observe, as you do, a lot of what's going on in the Ukrainian political scene. It seems that there has never been a point at which there has been more genuine sort of probing of the Ukrainian government. The democratic organ of the press is functioning. Journalists are not being locked up. They're writing highly probing and critical articles. And Zelenskyy has just appointed a female prime minister who not only is female, but is also one of the most progressive and competent people in the entire administration. He could have
doesn't read, though, does she?
Yeah, right. She's an extraordinary, brilliant, and accomplished lady, and I'm sure she reads a copious amount. But all the signs are, and of course, she's one of the first major appointments of a politician who has really long and deep connections with civic society. So rather than Ukraine descending into tyranny, it seems to be going the opposite direction. The administration is becoming more representative of society, more representative of the forces that have enabled Ukraine to be resilient and independent, and of those forces that up until now have been the only things really holding governance to account and driving reform. So again, why? Why this rash of articles? And superficially look at them, and they're quite sort of strongly written. There's some strong journalists there. There's one in The Spectator by Owen Matthews, who's been on this channel. He's a well-respected journalist. He's written a very good book called Overreach about the start of the Ukraine war. But if you unpick this particular article, it is replete with errors and insinuations and assumptions which are not true. So again, you wonder, not saying he's a Russian asset, but writers will often do things, or journalists or publications will do things because there is somebody on an editorial team or editorial staff who said, right, we need an article on this now, right? Who's going to write it? It seems The Spectator has an excellent Ukrainian journalist called Svetlana Maranets. So if you're going to get someone to write about, what's happening in Ukrainian society and politics, surely you would choose a Ukrainian journalist to do it, who you have on your staff. Surely you would take that article and you'd fact check it because you have such a person internally. The fact of the timing, the fact that this was given to somebody who is not well versed in Ukrainian politics and was clearly not fact checked by Ukrainian that they have on their editorial staff suggests to me there's something rather odd going on here. And the fact that it's also timed with a number of other publications doing similar kind of hackery on Zelenskyy. This is starting to feel like a Russian informational operation.
Yeah, it reminds me of the New York Times article that's just written. I mean, this is a kind of sidebar. It's but yeah. They had an embedded journalist in Kursk with the Russians, and she was a Moscow-based New York Times writer, and it's just like, really? So New York Times is all over the place. Sometimes they're really good and on point, and then sometimes it's just like dire in terms of where they're going with Ukraine.
Overall, they've been disastrous. They haven't during this war, and they are absolutely stuffed with, I would say, almost pro-Russian voices or highly, highly biased voices. So as you say, very, very variable. But some of the worst stuff they've produced harks back to the days of Walter Duranty.
Yeah, back to the Holodomor type times. So let's introduce Andrew. Andrew, sorry, we were just banging on, and you've joined us. Thank you very much for joining in. We're going to talk a little bit about Epstein first, if that's okay. How are you, mate?
I'm okay. I'm just sitting here working.
Cool. Yeah.
Epstein, bad guy. I'll just
not one of the best, was he? Yeah,
just that's about as good analysis as we're going to give. Bad guy. Well, so what's interesting about Epstein is, it's difficult because you enter into conspiracy theory thinking. We don't want to just say things that are wildly implausible but possible, but actually there are lots of things that are being said at the moment. So if you let me indulge myself, and Andrew, you can just continue doing some work in the background, and we'll just lay out some of the stuff that we're going to talk about. So Senator Ron Wyden had said last night, big news from my investigations on Epstein's sex trafficking operation. The Trump administration has an Epstein file detailing 4,725 wire transfers and almost $1.1 billion flowing through just one of his banks, hundreds of millions more through others. The Trump administration claims it doesn't have enough evidence to investigate. If you ask me, that's 4,725 lines of investigation right there, and that should only be the start of it. Epstein had to pay for all his sex trafficking somehow. Further evidence shows he used Russian banks to process hundreds of millions in payments. Again, this is info in the possession of the Trump administration, but they're refusing to investigate. So he's making this connection to Russia, whether or not that is definitely the case. Let's listen to him.
There is an Epstein file down there at the Treasury Department, and it ought to be used as the foundation for a follow the money investigation. The reality is, you build a sex trafficking operation of the size that we know this was, there's a tremendous amount of money moving, and it ought to be followed up to see how it was handled.
Can you sort of touch on just the key findings in this most recent tranche of revelations that you guys have put out?
Well, the key finding, of course, is that this is all about sex trafficking. And you can't run a sex trafficking operation of this size without an enormous amount of money. And what we have shown is there are very substantial questions about whether that money was handled in an ethical and honest way. There is an
So there you go. That's what he had to say. Just a few things. Just I'm going to throw in without really going into too much detail and reading them too closely. But so first of all, we've got the Ron Wyden claims there that there's this big Epstein file full of actionable information. Now the Treasury Department is kind of denying this, and that you got all these arguments over those claims. But then we have here Rachel Maddow, and I know she's not everyone's cup of tea, but actually she does really good work. When if you read her books, are really detailed and well written and well researched. So talking about, be careful about drawing parallels between Epstein and the Russian scandals. They are not the same. So the idea, what she's saying here is that Trump keeps talking about the Russia hoax and saying that the Epstein scandal is the same. It's a democratic created hoax like Russia. And she's saying, no, the Russia thing wasn't a hoax. If you look at actually the details of the Mueller report, it is very clear that there was massive interference in the election in the US in 2016, and it wasn't a hoax. And just be warned that he's trying to do a number of things through aligning these two things. But then we can get slightly deeper into things by going, here's a dossier centerpiece. Jeffrey Epstein's Russian connection. Billionaire's ties with the FSB Academy graduate are revealed. So this is Epstein's connections to a guy called Belyakov, a graduate of the FSB Academy who prepares Russian intelligence officers. He helped Epstein to deal with a Russian model who was blackmailing American businessmen, as well as proposing to arrange meetings with Deputy Finance Minister Serhiy Storchak and Central Bank Deputy Chairman Alexei Simanovsky. For his part, Epstein advised Belyakov on saving the Russian economy amid imposed sanctions, while also recruiting high-level guests for SPIEF, etc., etc. So you can go and read like a really sizable article here. It says at the end, although it's possible that Belyakov knew nothing about the charges against Epstein, it's difficult to believe. Even back in 2008, after the first criminal case against a financier, his reputation was so tarnished that universities refused his donations. Nevertheless, Epstein's associations with Belyakov may indicate that Russian intelligence services were trying to gain access to Epstein's extensive connections and resources. According to the Dossier Center, Belyakov and Epstein met at least 5 times. The Dossier Center suspects that Serhiy Belyakov could be the tip of the iceberg, again, could be, in the links between Russian elites and Jeffrey Epstein. If you have anything to contribute to our investigation, get in touch. So that they've written an investigative piece there. Then I'm going to take you to a Reuters piece, Epstein red flags. Russian models land Deutsche Bank $150 million fine. So they famously had to pay a fine. We're going to look at where Russia's mentioned in here, just so I can be quick. So just do a Control F. Look here. So Deutsche Bank will pay $150 million fine from a New York regulator for allowing disgraced financier Epstein to make payments to Russian models and withdraw suspicious amounts of cash during the 5 years as a client of the bank. So the transactions processed by the German bank included payments to alleged accomplices, lawyers, victims, Russian models, and women with Eastern European surnames, and suspicious cash withdrawals averaging $200,000 a year. The bank also chose in 2017 not to scrutinize payments to a Russian model and a Russian publicity agent. Since this type of activity is normal for this client, it is not deemed suspicious. So they are supposed to look into kind of Russian connections, but they didn't look into the Russian connections with Epstein because it was kind of normal for him. So anyway, he's like paying Russian models and publicity, Russian publicity agents. So it's all looking rather dubious. So on and so forth. And while these aren't like concrete connections, there are definitely connections that Epstein has to Russia in some ways. He's meeting with FSB Academy chappie and is taking Russian models and paying them for goodness knows what's through Russian publicity agents. And you're imagining that the Russian FSB is going to be all over this. But anyway, over to you.
Well, I mean, this is the perfect vehicle, isn't it? Something like this is the perfect vehicle for an intelligence agency to act through. So I think it's kind of fascinating from that point of view. Either if you're, Russian intelligence, you're going to want access to the kind of people who are potentially involved on the so-called list, the list that doesn't exist, or the list that doesn't matter, or whatever it is now. The one that has inflamed actually quite a few people in MAGA, who've been, the build-up there. Cash Patel and others over the last couple of years have built reputations, have built platforms out of saying, look, there's a list and there's dynamite and there's an establishment cover-up and we're going to blow it wide open. And now they're in charge. They're saying, yeah, nothing to see, move along, move along. But there's all that's going to blow up. But that's not necessarily helpful for Ukraine. It's a sort of partisan internal issue. But you can see why an intelligence service would want access to a client list of someone like Jeffrey Epstein, why they would want possibly access to any evidence that emerges from that, whether it be sort of video evidence, transcripts, or whatever, especially if there's any illegality involved. And we're not just talking about one individual here. There are potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of people who would have be implicated in such a thing. So it's a goldmine for an agency like the GRU or the SVR, because once you have that kind of material, once you have material you can blackmail people on, whether that be in the media, whether that be in Hollywood, whether that be in tech companies or wherever, the leverage you have is huge, absolutely huge. And if you're running it through, as a lot of Russian operations are starting to be run, you're running it through criminal enterprises at a distance. You're not actually having to put your own ethnic Russian SVR agents into the field. Then again, it has an element of plausible deniability if you run it well. So it's entirely plausible.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it interesting that, and I'll come to Andrew in a second. Is it interesting you're starting to see really highly polished videos of JD Vance doing these visits around places and talking about what he's up to and how good he is, blah blah blah. And you're like, are they maybe putting a contingency plan in place in case Trump ends up not being the president, and then we have the worry that, oh my God, JD Vance is even more ideological and even more problematic. So it's
that's a speculation indeed, but we can't know where this is going. But again, the timing is curious. The timing when Trump finally seems to start understanding a little bit about Ukraine and why Ukraine needs to win. The timing is curious as to why you would now try to exert pressure, you try to undermine him, you try to weaponize the political environment. It's, this doesn't feel coincidental.
Any thoughts on Jeffrey Epstein and Russia at all there, Andrew?
Well, if you take a step back, Trump was not the one who was really antagonizing Ukraine. It was JD Vance. So when you think of it this way, Trump being less antagonistic to Ukraine and more to Russia is really him distancing himself from JD Vance. And also that entire wing of the Republican Party, because there's Colby, who is crazy. Like legitimately crazy. Like he thinks he can see the future. Like
Zeldridge Colby, who apparently was one of the ones who blocked the mandated aid to Ukraine, military aid.
It wasn't even him. It was people under him that went over his head. That makes it even worse. But
wow.
But yeah, there's some. Anyway, there's this. The Republican Party's not one thing. Right. So, and there's this whole wing that's kind of in that camp. I don't even know how to describe it, but there's this wing of like, they think they're like these self-righteous future seers, and like Colby is one of them, and then To a lesser extent, there's like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk.
Yeah.
They're slightly different group. They're a different group, but they're like in the same category. So
the way I see it, you got the Project 2025 Heritage Foundation lot, who I think are exceptionally dangerous. You Russell Vought, and I'd actually put you JD Vance in with that. Although JD Vance is a bridge between them and Peter Thiel, right? Because he is Peter Thiel's protege. So then you've got like the tech bro, the techno fascists, Peter Thiel, David Sachs, Elon Musk, and JD Vance being in that kind of mold, but that bridge between the kind of religious Christian nationalism of the Project 2025 lot and then the techno fascists, and it's just that whole group of people is just not who you want in charge of the United States.
No, and they're wildly unpopular. When you look at their policies, like they themselves are wildly unpopular. Like JD Vance is like totally uncharismatic. He's like anti-charisma. And all of them are just kind of end up like, if you listen to them too much, you're just kind of like, you're kind of a jerk, you know, like with Elon Musk, like pretty much a poisoned asset at this point. And all he had to do was be in the limelight for a few days.
Thiel and Miller are repulsive individuals, and that's not just from a political point of view. I mean, just listening to them, seeing their body language, they're deeply unpleasant.
This is a really good point, actually, Andrew, because you're absolutely right. So JD Vance, known for having no charisma. Peter Thiel, no charisma. He's terrible in interviews. Like that big sweaty interview where he couldn't get his words out was one of the most cringeworthy interviews I've ever seen in my life. Elon Musk is terrible in interviews. Who is the other one you just mentioned? Also, there was 4 of them there. They're just these people are not. Stephen Miller is just an angry fascist, and
it's like a walking ghoul.
He is. He's Nosferatu, but he's like even worse. He's even more deathly. But yeah. So it's interesting that they're not going to win the charisma battles, which is half of politics. But yeah,
and on top of that, on top of having absolutely no charisma, all of their policies are wildly unpopular. And if they were ever given the chance to actually do them, they're going to get crushed. Like they're going to lose every election. They don't stand a chance. The only way that they can do anything and achieve any sort of power is to have someone who's actually charismatic carry the day. So they had to have Trump,
who doesn't really understand those policies, and also then start putting things in place so that they can't lose an election. So that you start changing the rules, changing the structures, changing legal frameworks, and fascinating. Goodness me, right? Do you mind if we go completely left field from there? Because as we got Andrew on, it's worth talking to Andrew about what's going on along the front lines and whatnot. Is that all right, Andrew, to talk about that?
I mean, there's nothing good to say. It's just all terrible. I mean, it's honestly to the point where it's not very interesting. It's just everything is awful.
Well, here's a question I want to ask, because the media. So we've got Pokrovsk, and it's it may be days, it may be weeks, but it is quite possibly falling. And of course, we've seen this before with Bakhmut and others. The media immediately, Ukraine is lost. They'll be in Kiev by whenever it is. I mean, the tone is that every loss like Pokrovsk is a calamity. But surely in a war of attrition against a much larger foe, you see territory in return for a high price. So Pokrovsk may be going down, but if Ukraine has been able to inflict far greater casualties on Russia than it has sustained, then that is part of an equation for eventual victory. Is there any way to talk about this by taking a step back and saying, yes, they've got incremental losses, but they're winning the long-term war of ratios and increments, or is this too optimistic?
Well, they're kind of not winning the ratios. It's like it's not going well. So basically, the problem is Russia has found like this trick that Ukraine hasn't countered yet. And the trick is kind of like a three-pronged thing where they pin you in place, hit you with airstrikes and artillery, and then drive a motorcycle over. and then capture the place of a motorcycle. So, and also the lesser said thing that like no one's really talking about, and it's kind of unfortunate, is they're gassing, like they're dropping chemical weapons. So if you're in a dugout, they gas it, and you have to leave the dugout because it's a chemical weapon, and there's not much you can do about it. Even if you wear a gas mask, it doesn't help you because it burns your flesh. So you have to get out, and then they just drive a motorcycle up and capture it. So this is the really kind of the issue here is, and I kind of see it as like a one-trick pony type thing, because countering what Russia is doing is complicated. But if Ukraine ever counters it, I don't think Russia has anything left in the tank. Like they have like their armored vehicles are like depleted. Their air power isn't enough to do anything, and they're really relying on this motorcycle brigade. And the motorcycles are they're supported by airstrikes and by gas attacks and artillery, and they're using a lot of artillery. When you talk to Ukrainians, they'll tell you that like the two things that Russia are doing right now is artillery and drones. So if you eliminate those two things, you're pretty okay. And this is why Ukraine is now pretty much exclusively focusing on taking out drone pilots and taking out artillery pieces. They don't really view anything else as mattering.
What I see on a daily basis from looking at the general staff figures and assuming they are largely accurate, or at least giving us trends, is that consistently they're over double the daily average for artillery systems still, like every day. Now I know they're going to include mortars in that, but at least heavy mortars, but they are clearly just going for artillery systems. And of course it's very difficult to work out losses, because you quite often they'll submit, no doubt, and you'll know this, Andrew, better than me by a long way, but they'll be submitting video footage of a kamikaze drone hitting an artillery piece, but you don't really know how much damage is done. They're quite simple bits of kit, artillery pieces, compared to like all the moving parts of a tank, right? And there's every chance that a drone hitting an artillery piece isn't going to do the damage that they would like it to do. But anyway, they're listing certainly a lot of artillery pieces every single day, and we're starting to see a lot of focus from this coming from Brovdi, Magyar, the extra points for drone operators. You're seeing aviation hit drone operators. So yeah, absolutely what Andrew is saying it seems to be absolutely on point from the stats and from the videos, and he'll know, of course, the videos. So they're really going for those two things. So
where's the ratio? Where's the parity then? Because we've had periods of ammunition famine where Ukraine has sustained far more casualties than perhaps it ought to have done when they're running out of this ammo. We're at the moment. And then if we fast forward to the Czech election, it seems that Czechia has been providing a huge number of these shells, plus it's one of the few countries that's dusted off these production lines. But if the election goes the way of a more pro-Kremlin party, you could see another ammunition famine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If Czechia, if they flip, it's going to be really bad. Like the only thing that might save it is that they really have to bow to the United States. Like it doesn't matter who's in charge; they have to bow to the United States. So the Americans have the power to just say, "No, you're making ammo." But also. It depends on who's the president, I guess. So, but yeah, there's no way. Like the Czechs can't not do what the Americans tell them. Like they're not in a position to say no. So, if the Americans tell them to, they have to. So, and it's the same with Slovakia. With Slovakia, the American
because NATO is going to be playing a large part in this, because they are NATO member states, and that means that the European commander will have some degree of
when Fico came into power, he was like, "We're not giving anything to Ukraine," and then Biden was like, "Yes, you are." And he was like, "Okay." So, so it's like that's just these countries aren't in a position to say no. Like they have to. They don't have the economy. I mean, this is so much money. It's so much money. So
and they
can't-
flipped
yeah,
on
you can't
sanctions,
say no.
haven't they? They were holding up the European package of sanctions. Someone's leaned on them because they've just given in.
Yeah.
There'll be concessions there, but but the munition stuff is slightly different because actually they are, as Andrew's saying, there's a lot of money involved. So all the Czech initiative is good for Czechia because all of those shells that come in from abroad then go through a kind of vetting process where their own companies are looking at the shells and making sure they're fine. And so this is, and they're taking money from all these partners who are doing that. And this is very useful for them. And if the ANO and a coalition with the ANO, so ANO is like a centre-right but populist party, and then they might go into coalition with the far-right party coalition in Czechia. If they came in, then they would have to contend with sticking two fingers up to Ukraine, but also then losing a lot of money that's involved in supporting Ukraine.
I mean, even Serbia is supporting Ukraine. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. Just going back to your position on drones, Goose Springsteen, thanks Goose, says Michael Kaufman has said even with their innovation, he has concerns about Ukrainian force exhaustion and manpower depletion. I mean, this has forever been the issue, right? Drones can deny your enemy tactical success with low force density, but you can't hold territory with drones. This is something I've been talking about a lot as well, that although you have a slightly nuanced position on taking territory with drones, Andrew, you've talked about before, but essentially like you are substituting human beings with drones, but actually what that then means is that you have very low force concentration in defending trench lines, and then the Russians, as you say, just use a bit of gas, drive up with motorcycles, and then they can easily take it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so drones can't hold ground.
Yeah.
Can they take it though? Are they purely defensive operations, or can they be used in offensive operations?
Yes, they can be used offensively, and they have been. And by Ukraine, to capture positions, they have been.
Yeah.
So, so they cannot hold ground, but they can deny ground. They can deny your existence there. That's really what they do. Is they're area denial weapons. So they can deny you. And yes, that's really it, isn't it? They're just area denial. That's what they do. So what you do is you try to stop them from getting to you. You can't stop all of them. That's the problem. Even if you stop 95% of them, you can't stop all of them. So it's that last 5% is the issue, and that's the thing people are missing. It's the last 5% that's the issue, or the last 10%. So if the Russians like attack with 100 guys, like 80 of them get taken out, like 10 of them are like laying wounded on the ground, and then the last 10 make it. It's the last 10 guys.
But you were saying that 2 years ago, Andrew, because I remember I've said this many times, which is that they used to do it not with motorcycles, but they used to do it with APCs. So there are 5 APCs delivering 20 people in each APC, and they're trying to take a tree line, and they get 5 people to that tree line. Tremendous casualties, but then they do another 5 APCs, and eventually after 5 waves, you've got 25 people in a tree line, and you've taken it just through overwhelming numbers. So you're banking on that just a small number getting through. Now it looks terrible, and you might have people saying that attack was repelled, but actually it wasn't repelled. They had tremendous losses, but they still got 5 out of 100 people through, and they've done that a number of times, and now they control the tree line.
Yeah, and this is why there's other technologies you can use to change the situation. For example, you can drop bombs on these accumulation points and wipe out the accumulation points. And everyone thinks that you have to drop a bomb from an airplane. You can drop a bomb from a drone. Yeah. And I wish people would be developing the drones to drop bombs. And I don't mean a 2-kilogram bomb. I'm talking like a 500-kilogram bomb. Drones can drop them. We could design it. We have the technology. Because what that would effectively be is a reusable cruise missile. Yeah. So, for example, if you take the engine from a Storm Shadow They make a version of that engine that is reusable. Like the Storm Shadow engine is like a one-time thing. It's designed to get destroyed because of the missile. There's a reusable version that they use for reconnaissance drones. The engine costs about $120,000, I think. Anyways, you could take that engine and build a drone around it whose only purpose is to carry a 500-kilogram bomb. And you could attach a glide kit to the bomb, have the drone just lob it into the air like 30 kilometers back, and have the glide kit drive it in. And then you could have an air force made out of drones. This is like the thing that we can do. Like it would just be like basically a fancy Storm Shadow, basically.
So BAE Systems, with an American manufacturer, have the Malloy Aeronautics, this big drone that can take 150 pounds of weight. It was designed in the UK to be able to airlift people, and the BAE Systems are now adapted it to fire the APKWS, which is a precision, like laser guided. Was a dumb rocket that's essentially given laser guidance, and they have now, as you can see here, they've adapted it to be able to fire these APKWS, and they appear to be pretty damn successful in so doing. That's not quite what you're saying, but this is a similar sort of thing where you're taking these munitions and using drones as a form of helicopter in this case, really, because they would normally fire these sorts of missiles. The helicopters, they're Hydra 70 missiles or rockets turned into an APKWS. So anyway, that's a sort of technology that's obviously very useful. But I guess in order to drop a 500-pound bomb or 500-kilogram bomb, you say, like what's the sort of drone you'd have? How much would that drone cost? And you obviously wouldn't want to lose it.
It would cost. From the math that I did, I've been thinking about this a lot. I've gone through the math and the numbers over and over again. If you were to build it to a NATO standard, like with all the sensors and stuff that NATO loves really expensive stuff. The NATO standard version would cost like $400,000. If you were to build
pretty much what the one you've just seen costs, 300,000 to 400,000.
Yeah, if you were to build it to a Ukrainian standard, probably like 200,000, which is not that expensive. And you would be able to fly around 40 missions before you would have to either overhaul it or just throw it away, and make a new one. So it would cost like, I don't know, like $8,000 per mission or something, which I think is completely reasonable.
Yeah, how does that compare to long-range strategic bombers, the more traditional kind, and mission there? I'm guessing they cost tens of thousands per sortie.
An F-16 costs like 20,000, I think,
per sortie. Yeah.
Yep. Although obviously it can carry more than one bomb, but
yeah.
But it would probably cost around as much as an F-16 per bomb fired.
Yeah, F-16s are expensive as well per sortie, so that's one of the advantages to Gripen, because they're relatively cheap to run compared to the F-16. For some reason, the F-16 is an expensive plane, even though it's very widely used. It's an expensive one to maintain and per flight hour.
But also, if you're using a drone, you're also not putting your pilots at risk. You're not putting the airframes at risk.
Yeah.
It's just a stupid drone. If it gets shot down, you don't care, because it's basically a reusable cruise missile. Yeah. So you're used to having your cruise missile blow up on the first try.
Yeah.
If you can do it 40 times, you'd be pretty psyched.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Ukraine...
Swarm. You'd want to swarm these to ensure that you attrit the air defense and something finally gets through.
The idea of this is that you're not going up against air defense. You'd be launching them from behind your line to glide into the enemy. So you'd be launching them pretty much the same way as you'd be doing it from like an F-16. Like you'd fly nap of the earth.
You wouldn't have enough speed on that to be able to get it to glide. I don't think you need some speed.
It does. The Storm Shadow is very fast. You'd be flying around 230 meters per second, something like that, and lobbed at a 30-degree angle at that speed.
Yeah.
Would give you like 30 plus kilometers of range, maybe 30 to 40.
Well, you need to start writing some letters, Andrew.
This is what I would do. I would have built this drone years ago, dude. I've been talking about this for a long time. I think it's amazing. You need to drop bombs is really the point. You need to drop bombs. And
100%.
Ukraine doesn't have airplanes. So they have like some, but it's nowhere near enough. Ukraine needs like something like 200 airplanes to patrol the
which
country.
is what they've said themselves. You know, that's a number they've touted themselves, and they are at least producing their own guided glide bombs at the moment, which is good news. I mean, I've long said Ukraine has to fight this war at distance. They have to have planes releasing cruise missiles. They have to be firing ground launched cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. They have to be using all sorts of drones, every type of drone, and not losing people. So you just, every form of attack has to be without people. So it's just missiles and drones and bombs, missiles and drones and bombs, and occasionally use UGVs and FPVs, not occasionally, use a lot of those. And you're starting to see that unmanned ground vehicles be used in offensive modes. You were just referencing that, Andrew, where they captured some people up in, I think, the Kupiansk front ish on the way towards there. So yeah, they need people. They don't have people, so that's a bit of a problem. Yeah. Yes. So that's a bit doomy, Andrew. They are suffering from motorbike attacks and from a lack of people to be able to defend these positions. But then the Russians also don't have an awful lot of people. But do you think the Russians are just doing a 50-day push here? Like they've heard from Trump, there's 50 days. Let's just throw everything we can.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, they've been saying that for a long time. I see like no difference in anything Russia's doing. They're just grinding. They're like, let's go. So Ukraine has to develop a counter. To what's going on.
Couple of questions here. Question for AP from Weebit Furry. Thanks, Wee. Do you see UGVs or hear of them being used for nighttime resupply? They seem to me to be ideal because they are quiet and have a low heat signature, and of course they don't risk a man. And actually, they're starting to use electric motors on them as well for that quietness thing. So have you been seeing UGVs increased in use?
Yeah. I mean, I just did a video where Russia blew up 19. These UGVs. Yeah, there's tons of UGVs. They're all over the place. They're being used by everybody of all different sizes. There's little tiny ones. There's big ones. All different shapes and sizes. Some of them are tracked. Some of them are wheeled. They're all over. They use them for every purpose, basically.
Well, so I wonder. Okay. Don't treat me like a complete bastard here, but humans do have a financial value. As in, I'm sure someone said once that they are equated in war terms at being like $500,000 is what a human is equated at. Or I don't know if that's correct, and I don't know how you would equate this. But what I'd like to see is, and again, this is not, forget the psychology, forget the morality, forget the kind of like the human side of this, but just from a purely kind of resource side of this, like how UGVs compare to humans in terms of, how many UGVs can you lose per human? And if a UGV costs on average this much, do you know what I mean? Like, what I'm sure there's someone in the higher echelons of some defense college somewhere that's worked this out, but if you're seeing 19 in one video montage, I presume, of these getting taken out, then they're using them a lot more, they're losing them a lot more, and obviously that they're spending a lot of money on these things. Better spend money than to lose a human.
These roads are so saturated with drones at this point, like you can't drive. Like it's not possible. Like this is why like you see like people walking like 30 kilometers because you can't drive. It's not an option. you have to go underground basically. Like it's you're gonna have to become a mole person, bring a shovel and start digging, because digging is very slow. So you got to dig a lot very quickly. So, I don't know, but you can't be above ground, and it's really like the last 30 kilometers at this point. All of the frontline towns, like the northern part of Touretsk, like to the north of Touretsk, just completely is collapsing because all the roads are gone. Like you can't even drive armor. Like the armor gets absolutely wrecked. I've heard one commander, he said that whenever you bring a vehicle within 30 kilometers of the front, you're accepting that it's a one-way trip.
Yeah. I'd heard that at 5 kilometers previously, but 30 kilometers is even worse, obviously.
I think it's
So, yeah.
extended because when I was in April in Donbass, it already felt pretty dangerous at certain points, but apparently some of those roads are now they've now built netting over many of those routes because it's got considerably more hazardous. But Andrew, the implication of this, if we take its logical conclusion, is that Putin may well push in the next 50 days to take territory. They may carry on using the techniques that you've outlined there of gas and motorcycles and so on. But it does suggest that consolidating those gains into substantial gains is impossible because of the lack of because of the complete transparency of the battlefield. So is it not the case that we may see incremental gains by Russia, but they'll carry on being annihilated by the drone saturation? So we're not going to see, substantial breakthroughs. I mean, I had a general on recently talking about the First World War, that actually there was a point where the deadlock was broken in 1918, and you did start to see, certain maneuver warfare taking place. But at that point, the German economy collapsed and it was all over, and they couldn't capitalize on some of those innovations that take place in tactics and techniques. But in this instance, it seems, am I being, again, optimistic, thinking the Russian economy will collapse before they're able to make substantial territorial breakthroughs?
I can't see any breakthrough ever happening, to be honest. But the Russian economy is tricky, right? So it's tricky in that it's horrific. The situation is so terrible. Like their farming situation is in collapse. Their train situation is really bad.
Their banks, their property industry. I mean, it's all
the property industry like doesn't exist anymore. It's like they're like, hey guys, we built 1 million square meters of new housing that no one's ever lived in before, and they were like, fantastic.
Whoops, ain't getting that back. And the defense industry is nominally that's the thing that's keeping the country on life support, keeping the economy on life support. But actually, I just translated a video by Vladimir Milov, who's a former Russian economics minister and now one of the key opposition voices, and he's saying that actually what you're looking at is an extraordinary Ponzi scheme where the government backs loans based on really having no collateral to back those up. It forces banks to make the loans nominally to the civilian sector, but actually they're to the military. So it's technically already a bankrupt system, but because of fear and duress and the lack of any rule of law, they're able to inflate this financial bubble further. And actually, yes, we look at banking, yes, we look at property, but the biggest financial bubble is now in the military industrial sector.
Yeah, all of those companies have taken on so much debt because Russia has been making them take on contracts without paying them.
Yeah, and
now all these companies are just so horrifically in debt that any little stressor could knock them out. Like Kamaz is on the brink of bankruptcy. That's not normal, So it's
a big entity, isn't it, Kamaz? It's
yeah. So, and also what's it called? WAS. They're on the brink of bankruptcy too. So where are they going to make loaves?
Yeah, they're Bukanka vans. Yeah, UAZ or what it was. Yeah, there are so many indicators at the moment that the Russians are in trouble economically.
Here's one point though. The most recent numbers on Russian military production, and okay, so refurbishment production. I don't mean new production, but refurbishment production. They peaked in 2023. The beginning of 2024, the number collapsed, and it has been going down since then. So that's the refurbishment rate of their vehicles. They peaked in 2023. In 2024, dropped dramatically, like 25%, and it's been going down since then. And this refurbishment it's declining over time, and this is with a dramatic increase in industry output, which tells you that it's taking more industry to refurbish.
Yeah. So Covert Cabal has shown that and other people like John P have shown that they've chomped through all their better, as it obviously you refurbish the ones that take the least amount of effort to refurbish, and then 3.5 years into the war, you're down to the ones that take a heck of a lot. You might as well just build a whole new one, and that takes obviously a hell of a lot longer to refurbish.
This is the kicker, though. So their refurbishment rate has been dropping as industry went up, but now industry has peaked, and now industry is going down. So if the refurbishment was going down while industry was going up, and now industry is going down, what's going to happen to that refurbishment rate? That's an issue. It's an issue going forward for them. And also, it's probably going to impact their new production as well. And also, their new production has been nowhere near where they're saying it is.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of bodies missing as well, isn't there? I mean, this report also talked about there are many operations which are falsifying their output, falsifying the amount of jobs that they have, because they're compelled to keep people on. But actually, as you said there, they may not have the parts, they may not have the orders, they may not have the capability to turn that stuff out. So this report says there are a lot of people in the job space who are still being paid, but they're being paid for non-jobs because these production lines are no longer able to sort of be sustainable.
Yeah, and a lot of their production lines are cutting hours and shifts.
Yeah. Challenging. I've got a couple of sort of questions and points. If Sumy, Goose, thanks Goose. If Sumy was at risk of siege, how damaging would it be for Ukraine today, economically and in terms of morale? So that's Sumy, the city, I presume. Look at the World War I rate of advance. It can change drastically. We can't assume Russia will always be this slow and be this bad. Any thoughts on, say, particularly Sumy and what the Ukrainians may or may not be doing up there, and how successful they were particularly successful in pushing them back? But I think the Russians have been trying to throw some troops into Sumy or some effort into there.
Yeah, the units that Russia put there are so bad.
Right. Okay.
They put just the special short bus people there. There's just, oh boy, do they take casualties. But Ukraine,
and of course you see this, like you see these videos like all the time, so you actually genuinely you have evidence of this.
Yeah, they're a different breed. Those 155th and 80th, they really are the special forces of the Russians.
Special.
Yeah.
So do you think that the Russians are going to be able and wanting to push the Ukrainians back? Will they get to close enough to Sumy to give it direct artillery attention?
I think it's more or less stabilized at this point. I think something would have to change. I expect it to stay like this more or less, unless something dramatic happens.
Yeah, I mean that strike on Koronovo up here where they took out basically the entire leadership of the
Yeah,
155th.
that was unfortunate. That those leaders, they were doing a great job.
Yeah, right. I see what you're saying. But actually, some of those were serious, like high in the Russian Navy, not just the Naval Infantry Brigade, so the Marines. So, I mean, that was a really significant strike, and we've seen the Ukrainians actually do quite a number of these precision strikes recently. Are there any? Do either of you have any knowledge on ATACMS and whether they still got any left, and whether they're going to get any more? Because there is some hope that they could apply them.
I believe they still have some left, and they might get more. I don't know.
Yeah.
There really aren't that many ATACMS left. Just like
in American stocks.
inventory, like because it's getting phased out. It's kind of an obsolete weapon, so Prism is going to take over.
Well, the hope was that as the Prisms come in, I mean, it looked like they actually got given the ATACMS when the Prisms started coming in, so there was a correlation there. And like I would be hoping that as the Prisms come in, they just give all of their ATACMS to Ukraine. I mean, it just seems to be, rather than spend money on decommissioning them, just like, here you go, because they just need to be able to launch an absolute ton of these. This is why I can't wait for the Ukrainians. I've just done my military aid video. I haven't released it yet, but there's a claim from Smetanin that they are producing 10 times as many cruise missiles this year as last year. But actually, we're not really seeing many cruise missiles. So if they only produced one last year, that only means 10 this. So it depends what they're producing last year. But they need to be producing the shit out of cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, like Hrim-2s and Long Neptunes, and like they need to be just sending torrents of these at the Russians.
I agree. And why is Europe not making any? It's crazy. What is Europe doing? Like, Europe needs to go buy like literally minimum 10,000 cruise missiles.
I was saying this at the beginning of the war, like I was saying that Britain just needs to not provide anything else to Ukraine, just build Storm Shadows.
I mean,
I don't know why it didn't happen.
I'm not even talking about Ukraine. Europe needs like 10,000 cruise missiles just for themselves.
Yeah.
They can't defend, or not even. You don't defend by defending. You defend by attacking. Europe can't defend itself because it has no cruise missiles. Like,
which is interesting.
Like 10,000, if not 20,000.
Well, Germany, France, and the UK do know this because, but the foresight was not there, and that's hence your like exasperation. You know, we are now getting together and developing a new cruise missile to replace the Storm Shadow, but it's like, why 3 years ago? Like that. Anyway, like there is a recognition there. It's just the sense of, you know, urgency hasn't been there.
I don't get it. And look at what the Germans just did. Those silly Germans. They spent all their money on air defense. Make a cruise missile. So frustrating.
Taurus. I mean, the Taurus production lines have been let slide as well. So not only have they not provided them, they didn't kick those production lines off to replenish potential stocks.
Same with Storm Shadows, but then, you know, we've just heard that they are now starting to make Storm Shadows again. But this is the sort of thing that we, and Tochny, you know, and Andrew, we've been talking about this for 2 years. Like,
I mean, we're almost 4 years into this thing. It's 3.5 years in. It's insanity.
And I wanna stress this. This isn't even about Ukraine. Like, Europe not having cruise missiles is like an emergency situation. It's a complete disaster for Europe, and you also don't have ballistic missiles, by the way. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. So, and also defensively, SAMT should have been invested in way more, like because we've been so used to relying on the US for weapons, and now you got the nut job in charge. You're like, okay, there needs to be just a massive investment from France and Italy into SAMT and the Aster 30 missiles that go with that, and so on and so forth. Andrew, do you think that Ukraine can ever do any meaningful attack again?
They probably will at some point, but I don't know. Should not be a focus. Like, attacking is kind of stupid, to be honest. There are ways that Ukraine can do things without attacking. and that's through what Ukraine really has to do is deny areas, and you focus that denial. Like you put like layers of onion of drones around an area, make it completely unsustainable for the Russians. The Russians will leave, and then you can enter it once they're gone. Or when it's so weak that they can barely defend, you push the stragglers out. Like that's the sort of thing they should be doing. It's not attacking. It's more just strangling them until they give up.
Yeah, we talked about that last time. Yeah. Agreed.
It's an attritional war. It's an attritional war, and yet the media narrative doesn't seem to sort of understand what the implications of that are. We've got a much larger, better resourced foe. The story ought to be, the war started with in what in people's minds was an almost guaranteed Russian victory. It had enormous, almost unimaginable scales of stocks of ammunition and tanks and everything that had been invested in during the Soviet period. So you've got a bunch of nationalist gangsters in charge of probably the largest arsenal in history. Well, not an awful lot of that's left. They're now relying on North Korea for their ammunition stocks. I mean, that's the story, but you don't really hear that too much. The attritional war is actually being won by Ukraine, if you look at this big picture.
Someone has asked about this on the live chat, and I've talked about this in all of my videos today. There was a Channel 4 documentary on last night with people like Malcolm Nance, who I've interviewed. There's loads of really good contributors. It's called Trump, Moscow's Man in the White House. It's a Dispatches documentary on Channel 4. Get yourself a VPN, use Opera browser, it has a built-in VPN or whatever. If you're living outside the UK, watch this through Channel 4. It's a very good documentary, and it kind of condenses a lot of what Sabrina Zabriskie and Malcolm Nance have been saying separately, but adding loads of CIA intelligence and stuff in there. It's just a very good summary documentary of how compromised Trump is by the Russians. The question is whether he has agency or whether he's a useful idiot, and that's what they're kind of looking at. But certainly it's the opinion of most of the people there. He's at least a useful idiot. So he is very easy to manipulate, and he is manipulated by the Kremlin and has been successfully. But that is an excellent documentary, so go and watch that, peeps. That's your homework for next time, and I want you to have read it and taken some bullet note points. Use one of the big biros to the multicolored ones, get your different colors in there, and then I'm going to test you on that next time we're together. So that's your homework.
Use Sharpies if you want to be on theme, right?
Well, yeah, this is a very good point. Well made. I have not heard of this point. I don't know if either of you have. This is Rock Butcher saying, did you read about the Chinese defector to Russia who shared China's plans to support the Russian Communist Party if Putin falls? Not heard about that.
Not heard about that. That sounds
something
bonkers.
I'm gonna have. Something I have to look into. Do you mind if I do a few super chats? Is that right?
Yeah. Just a little note on that one, which you probably have heard, is the Russian Communist Party have just come out and they're rehabilitating Stalin.
Yeah.
Now, someone made a rather interesting point, which was, one, they wouldn't do that without Putin's approval. That doesn't mean that Putin wants to rehabilitate Stalin, which is the conclusion many people have drawn. Oh, look at Putin, he loves Stalin, etc. No, I think it's a more subtle point, which is as he becomes increasingly unpopular, there's no real direct way of expressing that as an electorate. But it does mean that some of the fringe puppet political parties might start to get genuine organic approval. Therefore, getting the Russian Communist Party to approve of Stalin may be one way to actually make them less serious, to actually degrade them as an opposition force. Because, yes, some people are going to love it, but a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, I'm not touching that. So there might be some interesting nuance and play within that.
I know that Inside Russia has talked about the Stalin thing quite a bit, and he's been noting the increase in the love of Stalin, and from what I understand, the Russians actually are starting to like Stalin. Like, I don't think
it's not even starting. I had conversations in the 90s which horrified me Often it was in villages and transport with people who weren't necessarily, from the sort of university intelligentsia. But I had conversations where people would be openly not just appeasing or apologetic, but no, Stalin, that's what we need right now. So this isn't new. I mean, this is building on something that was already present.
Well, don't worry, because you go to America, and isn't it true that some people are just, who's that other guy? It was Stalin, what's that name? What's that guy?
Not
that was it. Hitler. That was
Hitler.
it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He seems to be resurging. Sorry, joking. Not, sadly. Right, 18th sanctions package has been given a go-ahead. That is fantastic news, although there's not the unity with the United States that I'd like to see them on board with oil price caps and whatnot, but certainly the EU now going forward with that. And I love the fact that they are already, a bit of props to the EU here, they're already working on a 19th package of sanctions. And I love that. There is just like, let's not rest on our laurels. Let's go on, and this needs to be an ongoing thing. That's the problem with the US, is that the 6 months now with the Trump administration is that they haven't been taking what they already had in place and then closing loopholes and enforcing and then working. Sanctions is a continuous project of having to work on those sanctions and make sure the loopholes are closed. And if you're not doing that,
he tore those loopholes wide open.
Yeah. Really frustrating, that, because I think the US Treasury Department are one of the most important components of the war against Russia. I really do. So there's a few thanks here. Johnny Nedregard, thanks for your Norwegian love here, mate. Appreciated. Goose Springsteen was talking about Epstein earlier. Doubt it can ever be proven, but considering the history of Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, with Israel, along with Epstein's own history, a Mossad connection for him and Ghislaine seems very plausible. This is one of the conspiracy theories, but it's one of those theories that actually does have a fair bit of evidence. So Jeffrey Epstein was friendly with and was visited by the former Prime Minister of Israel a number of times. Ghislaine Maxwell's dad is Jewish of Czechoslovakian descent and was involved very much with loads of things after the war, and indeed was buried in Israel, if I'm correct in saying. Like, there are genuinely very strong connections of Israel to Maxwell, and from Maxwell to Epstein himself, obviously. And so yeah, those conspiracy theories, I think, are not just like wildly improbable claims, but actually they do have some merit. Stephen Bendel, Russia has a finger in most of the bad stuff in the world. So this is obviously with reference to Epstein again, from Soviet times and still today. This will not change. I don't disagree with you there at all, Stephen. Thank you for your support. And then another one from Goose. Also consider, and thank you, Goose, very much, USDA District Attorney Acosta. He was one who was he was the Labour Secretary, actually, as well, by Trump. Trump made him the Labour Secretary, is that right? But he was a DA that was involved in the Epstein thing, stating Epstein's lenient sentencing in 2007 was, and his non-prosecution agreement being related to Epstein belonging to intelligence. This is also part of the theorizing. He's come out and tried to sort of deny that since, but his denial itself was really weak and didn't really do anything to deny it. So yeah, that the Acosta thing is a definite connection, a definite concern. The wider Israeli relationship with Russia wouldn't rule out collaboration. So we are now hearing, interestingly, I reported this the other day, Israel have asked for Russia to keep their bases in Syria. So there is a worrying connection of Israel to Russia at the moment in some contexts. Yeah, sorry, I'll keep going on. Do you guys want to say anything to what's been said?
The Israel-Russia connection is infuriating. I also just sent you a message that shows the latest Russian military technology that I think you might be interested in.
I wonder if it's something I just caught a sight of. Let's have a look. Yeah, it was. I saw this, but only as I was loading up this video, and I haven't seen it properly yet. So let's have a look at this. Let's get rid of that. This is good. This is some pretty good technology, and it's certainly something to worry about for the Ukrainians.
Look at them go. See, this is how you get ammo to the front.
I mean, that's obviously a genuine development. Like someone's actually sat down, like they need that. They don't have the money for UGVs in every unit. That's ideally what a UGV would do, but that is a leopard crawling soldier. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's good tech there.
Yeah, this is an MGV.
Yeah. A manned ground vehicle.
I like that comment. Yeah.
Goose Springsteen, not all conspiracy theories are made equal. Epstein as an intel agent is far more plausible than the Hollow Earth, 9/11 holograms, reptilian overlords. I absolutely agree, and this is why I'm no longer really calling it a conspiracy theory. I think it's a valid theory. Like conspiracy theories are prima facie something that you already think is wrong, right? And I'm not calling these connections with Epstein a conspiracy theories. I might talk about it in that way to try and communicate what other people think. But for me, these are now theories that I need to take seriously because there's enough evidence to suggest that they are, as Goose says, plausible. So I think we're in some agreement there, Goose. Right, just a few more, guys. Thank you to Kevin Force for some ATP Geopolitics memberships. Thank you to, it's really kind. You're always so kind. BME, Tadmore for the Ukrainian Wine Fund, JP, Slava Ukraini. Thank you, my good man. Thank you. BME bought one of my NAFO mugs recently, and I'm not one to spam much, but I'm not so much for the, I just love this. I love the design of those NAFO patches and the mugs. Anyway, thanks to all that helped with that. Rob became a new YouTube member. Thank you. And Rob gifted 10 ATP Geopolitics memberships. That's super kind of you, Rob. Thank you. Okay, we're just getting towards the end of the super chats and whatnot. Lee Renz says, and we really should have this at some point, Jonathan. My faves together again. Enjoy a beer on me when you're next together. I presume he means Jonathan and I because we're in the same country. But Andrew, you're always welcome for a beer. It's slightly further for you to come. So thank you very much, Lee. Super appreciated. Thank you to AJ Simo for the memberships there. Super kind. Julie, good to have him on board again, AJ. Simo. Julian Rossiter said, what would Andrew least like to make an attack on? A party loaf or a golf cart? And these are the questions that are at the heart of this war. So can you explain a party loaf? I'll try and find a picture of one.
A party loaf is so there's a loaf that has like a bed in the back, right? So we called that a pickup loaf, right? Because it's a loaf and it's a pickup truck at the same time. So they started creating another sort of pickup truck where they would chop the top of a normal loaf off. Actually, they're using what's called a farmer. A farmer is a type of loaf. And the farmer has an internal wall between the driver and the back, presumably for like storing animals. I don't know. So there's a wall, and so you can chop the roof. You can chop the roof of the loaf off, and you still have that wall behind you. So it's kind of like, and you have an open back, and you can have a little party back there, and that's a party loaf.
This is a party loaf. You can see it there. There's no one partying in it at the moment, but that is a party loaf.
That's not a farmer either. That's just a normal loaf. But usually they're made out of farmers, and farmers have that wall right behind the driver's seat.
Happy days. So, oops, there you go. Right. That is a party loaf for you. They're all my messages. So what was the answer? So it's a loaf or a golf cart? Party loaf or a golf cart?
Which do I like more? I mean,
what would you attack in more?
The party loafs are usually a big party, so you usually go for them because they usually have like 6 or 8 guys in the back. You can get.
But what would you rather be in?
Which would I rather be in?
To attack.
The golf cart. I'd rather be in a golf cart. They just seem more survivable than the party loaf. The party loafs, when they get hit, they explode and it's on fire. And you usually don't get out. You're surrounded in fire, and it's not good for you. The golf carts are surprisingly tanky. They don't explode so much. They just kind of like have holes in them, so you don't have that risk of being covered in fire.
Very, very important question. Thank you, Julian. BME, here's a little something towards your favorite tipple, Jonathan. Keep up the great work, Slava Ukraini. I do need to get me some more white port from Mark at the little whiskey shop. So thank you. Tom Williamson, good seeing you guys together. Anyone looking forward to Trump versus Murdoch? So this is a really, I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time on this if I can before we sort of meander to the end. So what we have is a situation whereby Trump is going to town on all of this, all of the controversy with Epstein. Okay, so we've had some of his proxies like Randy Fine here saying, I'll be introducing legislation to end the House of Representatives subscription contract with the Wall Street Journal. Because remember last night I did the breaking news update. The Wall Street Journal published this birthday letter that Trump wrote inside a drawn picture of a naked woman, and he had his signature as like the pubic hair, and it was the typing in the middle of that picture was just really weird and insinuated that he and Epstein liked the same things and had the same sort of secrets and whatnot. It was just highly controversial, and that's what's blown up today. So now Randy Fine's saying that he's cancelled the House of Representatives subscription contract with the Wall Street Journal. Americans shouldn't be paying for disgusting and filthy rags. I have also
$50,000.
I have also directed my entire staff to delete their taxpayer-funded Wall Street Journal accounts, and so that's happened. That kind of thing you're going to see. Then you had Donald Trump going nuts and basically threatening to sue, and Donald J. Trump. So that the supposed letter they printed by President Trump to Epstein was a fake, and if they print it, they'll be sued. Mr. Murdoch stated that he would take care of it, but obviously did not have the power to do so. The editor of the Wall Street Journal, Emma Tucker, was direct, blah, 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 blah. So now he's threatening, so he's going to sue the Wall Street Journal, News Corp, and Mr. Murdoch shortly. This is a real fight between some international juggernauts there. But part of the defense of Trump was interesting because he said initially when he was approached by the Wall Street Journal about this picture that was in this birthday leather-bound compendium of stuff that people had sent Epstein for his 50th birthday. Trump said, well, it couldn't be me, essentially, because I don't draw pictures. Or he said, I don't write pictures. And then there are lots of people are coming up with the fact that he's lying. Right, so his defense was like, it couldn't be me. It's like Prince Andrew saying that I don't sweat in this his defense of like the Jeffrey Epstein accusation. So it couldn't be me on the dance floor being sweaty because I don't sweat or whatever it was. Anyway, it takes me a few minutes to draw something, says Trump after denying that he draws anything, and then people then found actual pictures he's drawn and sold. So above is Donald Trump's city skyline drawing with bidding at $205. Last year, Trump drawing netted $275, and then you've got 4 different drawings from. Sure, would be embarrassing if there were many documented examples spanning years of Trump drawing pictures, and it's like. This is absolutely brilliant. So as a signed picture with a photo of him, it's like, I don't draw pictures. There's a picture that he signed. There's another picture that he's drawn. There's another picture he's drawn and signed. It's like, he just lies. He just lies. It's absolutely insane. So that's true. So he's going to sue apparently, Maxwell and et cetera, but I guess we're going to have to wait and see how that turns out. I mean, I'm going to get the popcorn if we have Trump against Murdoch, because Murdoch and what's also interesting, like to take it back to Russia, I love the fact that New York Post, and I don't know what the association is, whether they've got some staff who are associated with Ukraine, but the New York Post is a tabloid newspaper that Murdoch owns that is pro-Ukraine and has been staunchly, like as a MAGA rag, is staunchly pro-Ukraine, and I love that. And Zelensky's even starting doing interviews with the New York Post. So and the Wall Street Journal has been rather anti-Trump, more so than any other kind of right-leaning outlet. So I think if we start seeing, because then Murdoch owns Fox News, and then you've had Newsmax kind of going, oh, I don't know why Fox News are kowtowing to Trump. So you've got these divisions going on all over the MAGA sphere, all over the information spaces, and I'm going to get my popcorn and I'm going to eat it all night long to watch Murdoch and Trump go at each other.
How did Trump not learn the first time? That's my question. They've learned nothing from Signalgate. Nothing. It was only a few weeks ago.
In what respect?
They dropped a bait piece. They ate the bait, and then immediately got hit by the follow-up. They still ate the bait, and then they got hit by another follow-up, and then they had to backtrack on everything, and it all fell apart. And he immediately fell for the trap a second time. You know, they would never publish what they published unless it was a trap. Obviously, like they have follow-up. It's not, that wasn't all they had.
Yeah, I was
They did it
wondering
again and again.
about whether they've got follow-up. That would be very interesting because, you know, yeah, you can imagine there's more to come.
How did he fall for it twice? It's ridiculous. Like, come on.
Yeah. So more to see there. Now, you wonder whether it will be the downfall of him. I don't know because he has an amazing ability to just bat stuff off and lie about stuff, and then people believe in it. It's completely normalized. So I did a whole video on Trump's rhetoric and actions being normalized these days.
But Iran showed the sometimes they're at a point where you won't get the whole MAGA community to align with you. Now, the Iran strikes were short, sharp shocks. If you've been dragged into a longer conflict, then you lost more MAGA. But there's a contingency of MAGA who weren't particularly happy with the more war kind of approach, taking on Iran. It seemed to sort of split, and then a lot of Reaganite Republicans seem to be all in. Yes, we're going after Iran finally. So it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? So I wonder whether there are certain things on which Trump can't be guaranteed to bring his base, and suppressing everything about Epstein, that might be a break point for some in the cult.
I hope that Ukraine doesn't suffer as a result of some kind of either association with Epstein through like him pivoting, as you said earlier, pivoting on Ukraine, and then the Epstein thing, and MAGA say, right, you are part of the deep state with Epstein, clearly, and now you are part of deep state with pivoting on Ukraine. And like that kind of association is dangerous.
And Russia could use it. You know, we're back to our initial conjecture there that if Russia have some interest in Epstein's network and the information and even the practice of that, then equally that could be used to weaponize the US political environment. And Russia has shown themselves very adept at pouring petrol on the flames. I won't say they're originator of everything, but they're great at the divide and conquer and, you know, tipping gasoline onto a smoldering pile.
I don't see it that way for one really big reason. So Epstein in the US is a symbol, and it goes beyond what Epstein did. It's more of a symbol of lack of trust in government, because the people,
this is a Tea Party thing.
People don't trust the government at all. People don't trust the Democrats. They don't trust the Republicans. They definitely don't trust Congress. Like Congress has like a 1% approval rating or whatever. Yeah. So like Epstein became a symbol of, we don't trust the government. We want to know what's in that document. The government won't tell us. We don't trust them when they say, no matter what the government says, we don't trust them. So if the government says there's nothing in it, we don't trust them. If they say there's something in it, we also don't trust them. We don't trust them. We want to see it with our own eyes. And Trump, stupidly, he should have never done it. He was like, yeah, I'll show you. Vote for me. So this is a trust thing.
I utterly agree with you.
And the thing with Iran was also connected to that trust, because people don't want to enter a war with anybody, really, for any reason, honestly, except maybe China, just for fun. But Ukraine is different, though, because with Ukraine, first off, it's like just American, like it's in a different category, because Americans support Ukraine by and large. It's like 60-70% support of Ukraine. So for that reason, it's a different category. Also, it's not us doing it. Ukraine's doing it. We're just helping. So
and the return on investment. I mean, people complain about like $100 million here or whatever, but actually, like for what the kind of what NATO was designed to do, what the US armed forces have been built up for the last 70 years to do, is being done for an absolute shoestring budget, really, in terms of supporting Ukraine. You know, yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so the support of Ukraine doesn't tap into that fundamental distrust of government, except in some ways where people don't trust that the money's spent correctly and stuff like that, which goes into the mistrust. But by and large, it's kind of a different category. So I wouldn't conflate them.
Yeah, I agree. You know, the whole Epstein thing is very similar to QAnon. It's really tapping into that same reserve, as Jason Geringer here says. The whole QAnon narrative is represented by Epstein. MAGA thinks that it's all Democrats on the list. What surprises me, although it doesn't, but because people get sucked in by populism, what surprises me is that Trump is seen as the anti-establishment person. He was in 2016 and he was in 2020. 2025 and 2020, or 2024. But he wasn't. He's not anti. He is the establishment. He's a freaking New York real estate mogul who's been hobnobbing with the Russians. He's been hobnobbing with all sorts of different people. Like, he is the elite, right? So you don't like get this guy in to drain the swamp. Yeah, I'll drain the swamp. He employed the swamp. He lathered himself in the swamp. He was like bathing in the swamp all through the 2016 to 2020 tenure. Like, this guy is the frickin' swamp. He gets in like big business people that are going to look after their own big business interests. He's not looking after you, the little guy, the American average Joe. He doesn't give a flying fuck about you. The guy is an absolute elitist who might sell himself as some kind of populist guy who's going to represent you, but he does not and will not ever. He doesn't care for you one bit. You're voting for your face to be eaten off by the leopard. It does me in. And when you look at someone like, and I'm just going to finish it off with Nigel Farage. I was talking to my in-laws who are massive.
Oh God, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Talking to my in-laws this morning who are massive Brexiteers, but even he was like, my partner's dad was like, yeah, but I don't like Nigel Farage because maybe it's because of me, because I've talked to him enough about like the connections to Russia and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, don't be sucked in by you may be really, really find immigration a really big thing, which I do. Like, that's a big thing for you. But look under the bonnet and all this other crap that they're trying to sell you, which is just, they don't know how to run a government. It will just be an absolute disaster. And to link this to what I was just saying, Nigel Farage in the UK is the politician who has taken the most grift outside of his politician's wage, like by an absolute ton. Like, he declared like an extra £1 million of income, but there's undeclared thing. Like, he says he's got a fishing boat with a crew, and like, he hasn't even declared that yet. So the guy is a grifter, just like Donald Trump is a grifter. These are peas from the same pod. You vote for populists, they will not look after your best interests. They will be corrupt like Viktor Orban. Trump loves Viktor Orban. That's what Viktor Orban's done. He's lined his own pockets for the last however many years of his rule. These are corrupt bastards. Do not vote for them.
And incompetent, fundamentally incompetent. Just look at what they promised and look at what we've got. They promised vast amounts of money for the NHS. What we got is less money and it's falling apart. They promised much lower immigration. What we've got is much, much higher immigration, both legal and illegal. They promised that prices would come down. Prices have skyrocketed post-Brexit. Everything they've promised, the exact opposite has happened. So why do people think if you give them more power, suddenly their predictions and pronouncements will come right? No, they will be amplified in the wrong direction. Give them more power, they will be even more dramatically wrong about everything than they have so far been. And that's one of the problems. Before I jump off, because I'm going to go and collect my sprog in a minute, there's one topic I wanted to throw past you guys. But if you want to finish off this point, and then I'll chuck in my last question, as it were.
I want to do one thing and show you Benny Pie has taken some screen grabs from the very beginning of the video before Andrew came on and has put them through AI. And I just want to show you how good these are. Although I'm not happy, Benny, because it's made me look older than you, Jonathan. And as everybody knows, you've got 20 years on me at least.
20 years, yeah.
Yeah. So
facial hair, mate. You got to lose the fuzz.
You, AI. Yeah. It's great. And second of all, it makes us look drunk. So the first one, we have slightly red noses, but the third one, it's like it's gone to drunk over. It's gone crazy.
Sure, these weren't the Lviv pictures he's uploaded by accident. Yeah.
So this how good is that rendition of that is pretty accurate from the crazy load of crap that's going on back, and some wonderful stuff like my Vishivanka from Mark and Olina, and yeah, that is pretty amazing. Although, like, we do have slightly rosy noses there. The other one,
good. That looks nothing like me.
You look very concerned.
But look how much, look, A, it's given you more hair than you've got. B, you've got young looking hair. And look at me, look, I'm some old grey like person that's close to, retirement. And yeah. Anyway, so that
never mind retirement. You're close to 6 feet under, pushing up the daisies.
Shuffling off this mortal coil. But check this one out. Now and here we're just like drunker. It's just like, I'll have another one, please. Just give me one more.
We look hammered.
You both just came back from the pool, I think.
Yeah. Anyway,
the little whiskey shop. I think we've just paid a visit to the little whiskey shop in these.
Yeah, Mark's given us one too many whiskeys. Anyway, thanks, Benny Pie. Good for a bit of fun there. Anime Jonathans, and by the way, Benny has a lot of anime Jonathans. He's gone to town with it. I do look a bit miserable. Come on.
Yeah.
There were so many picks that you both look really grumpy. So I'm glad he picked a couple of nice ones. Great eminence. Thank you. So thank you, JP. Thank you, Benny. Appreciate that. So what last sort of remarks do you have, Mr. Fink?
So this was again to chuck in an interesting, and it comes up with a lot of contrarian points, but this is to chuck an interesting angle that Mr. Lindsay brought up in a conversation I had with him, and I hadn't thought of this. When we look at the 50 days, I think certainly I've been guilty of immediately focusing on that and saying, oh my God, that's 50 days for Russia to unleash hell. That's 50 days, and they will. Of course, we know they will. I'm not denying that they will. It's 50 days for them to lob, 700, 1,000, 1,500 shaheeds and missiles at Ukraine a day, and they will no doubt do that. Chuck wave after wave of meat at the front lines, and they will do that as well. They'll scrabble together all their resources, right? And that's all that I've focused on at the moment. Why 50 days? Why is this going on? Why is that a good idea? There is another point that could be made here. And there have been various points where the peace, so-called fake peace process has been going on. There have been points where the election was happening, where both Trump and Biden have leaned on Ukraine not to strike Russia, not to strike logistics, not to strike its oil infrastructure, to hold off from hitting anything, holster their weapons, tie their hands behind their backs. There have been lots of those instances over the last year or two. Now, the inverse explanation here is that 50 days, yes, it's a green light for Putin, but it's also a period in which Ukraine might not have its hands tied. It's right, knock yourselves out, hit as much Russian infrastructure as you can. You will not have any moral or political pressure applied to force you to hold back. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think that could be quite an interesting take on it.
It depends. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Germany are providing. So there's a lot of talk about Germany providing these Luti drones and a high three-digit number. Although there was a claim yesterday it was missile systems, but I don't know if that's just people getting it slightly wrong and lost in translation. But yeah, I am slightly worried, and it'd be interesting to see if Andrew has any opinion on this. I'm slightly worried that Ukraine have not been as effective with their drones in the last 3 weeks. Whether we are just not hearing about it, whether the OPSEC is better from Russia, but I'm not seeing the success rate of striking some of these places as well as they were previously. Obviously, we've not seen any refineries be hit, but I don't know if the Russians are getting better at shooting the things like the Lyutis down, which shouldn't be too difficult. They are not difficult things to shoot down. But I'd like them to go to town on attacking Russia with all sorts of munitions. Yeah. Andrew, any thoughts on like the success of shooting down Ukrainian drone attacks?
Honestly, I haven't been following it. I've been too busy with other stuff. But my one thing about the 50 days is that the way Trump describes the 50 days, which I am just going to assume the way he thinks of it, although he changes his mind all the time, but it's not supposed to be in 50 days we'll talk. It's in 50 days, we have to have a finalized contract, which means that we have to have like a contract in the first few weeks. Really, we have to be working on it right now. And he never said that he has to wait the whole 50 days. He said that if we're not finalized, if we're not done signed contract at the end of the 50 days, then I'll do whatever. But if there's no progress at all, if he sticks to what he actually said, he doesn't have to wait the 50 days. He could say, it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks or whatever, and you haven't done anything, so time's up, bud.
Yeah.
He could, but he's also Trump, so he.
Yeah, there is that. Well worth remembering. You're right, because I was thinking about this the other day, actually, that 50 days, it's not like on the 49th day, they're suddenly going to quickly rush a meeting in and then have something all prepared. So absolutely, this is a long process. And if they're not meeting already, it's been best part of, we've had 4 days since he said that, haven't we? And like, there's been no move to have any change there. So,
I mean,
that's a really important point.
Worse than that. The Russians laughed and said, we're not going to come to any agreement. I don't care about your 50 days.
Yeah. Good point. So I don't know, just before you go, Jonathan, Andrew, just because I don't know I've asked you this before, just because you're keeping your finger pretty much on the pulse, what are you most worried about? What are you most hopeful about? Or, what gives you concern? What gives you a bit of hope?
I mean, the concern is that Ukraine has not found any counter to what Russia's doing, and it's really bad. And the hope is that I think Ukraine's longer range drones, and I'm not talking about absolutely, I'm talking like 50 to 100 kilometers, maybe 200 kilometer range drones. I think they're really excellent, and they're only getting better. They far outclass anything Russia has. They outclass, honestly, anything any other country in the world has.
What, like the Balava, or what? Like they've just come out with a Lancet equivalent, like the X-wing one. But are you talking what sort of drones do you mean? Ones like that?
Well, yeah. There's 2 drones like that. There's another one as well, and there's other drones. I can't really talk about them. They're kind of secret.
All right.
But they're really good drones, though. They're really spectacular. It's doing a ton of damage to Russia right now. And
are we not getting footage of that? Like, is that stuff we're just not seeing, or is it part of what we're seeing? But we just don't know what's done the damage.
Yes. There have been videos of these drones, but they don't tell you what is going on. They just like, look at this thing, it's on fire.
Right.
Who knows how it happened?
Right.
Smoking again.
Yeah. So that's good. So there are good thoughts for good hopes that they can continue hitting stuff. But I mean, we've got to a point where, as you've said, they're just not really using many combat assets, and they swap using combat assets like APCs and IFVs, and they're just using SUVs and motorbikes and quads.
Yeah, basically, and Ladas. They take Ladas and they cut the top off, so it's like a junky pickup truck.
Wow.
Yeah.
I spoke to Dimka the other week, which is on the channel, and he said, look, they had one episode where he is, won't say where, on the front he is, And they had 20 of these motorcycles advancing towards a village. And in this particular instance, they didn't take, the trenches. They got into the village, and then they were completely wiped out to a man with their motorcycles. So I guess sometimes you can take ground, sometimes it can go catastrophically wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they do so many motorcycle attacks. A lot of the motorcycle attacks are destroyed before they even leave their own territory. And then a bunch are destroyed in the gray zone, and then some of them are destroyed in the blue zone. So almost all of the attacks fail. It's just that the tiny little fragments of the little zombies running around, so they find a little hole to hide in. And that's all it takes.
It's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Well,
I'm going to bow out. I'm going to bow out, Mr. Pearce.
Yeah, well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I just want to say, just before you go, thank you to who's popping. He's one of yours. So this is for you, Jonathan. Wouldn't give Herojam the steam off my whittle, he says, to translate that. Thanks to Pete Watson. Trump to deport Murdoch to Australia. Team Slava, Ukraine, raise hell, take no prisoners, make the world free, Russian fertilizer in peace, stay safe, JPJF AP. Thank you very much, Pete Watson. Look, mate, it's time for me to talk Australian for you. He says, Pete Watson says, look, mate, no 50-day Senate walked away. Trump said he'd do it alone, JPJF AP, and to all Slava Ukraine, God bless you all. May his bless wash you and guide you in comfort. Look, mate, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for your support, and thank you for supporting Ukraine.
You think that's a compliment, that accent? That's an insult to someone who's just given you a donation.
Oh, dear. Well, I'll try. Thanks, guys. Look, thank you very much to all those in the live thread who have been helping out with the channels and helping out with the lively live chat. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Andrew, and thank you obviously Jonathan. I won't thank myself. Paul, thank you, Paul Gilbert. I would love to know what effect of all the attacks on comms equipment has been. Dan, Jonathan's got to go. Jonathan, do you want to go? And I just want to ask Andrew this question because this is something that comes up on his.
Certainly. If I leave, it'll carry on broadcasting to my channel,
yes,
won't it? Until
and then when I stop it, it'll stop. So it should go.
Fantastic. I'll let you carry on. I'll let you rabbit on, and my audience can enjoy my absence. There we go.
It's just the last question. Well, thanks, Jonathan.
Right. Cheers, guys.
Andrew, I've been going through your loss lists that are now coming back online, which is fabulous. And I've been noting that, as I have done in the past, I kind of dismiss the comms equipment because for me, it's not as useful in what I'm looking at the list for. But I know there are lots of people that find it very useful. But one thing that has stuck out is that you have included some phenomenal amounts of what are normally in pink at the top of your list of comms equipment that particularly the Ukrainians have lost. Now, although like a Starlink or a bit of comms equipment is not going to be worth what a tank is, it's not going to be worth what a self-propelled gun is, it still has value, although it can be replaced more easily than a self-propelled gun, right? But it seems that there's a trend of the Ukrainians losing a lot of that stuff. What's going on there? Is there some kind of selection bias? Are the Ukrainians, do they not publish that stuff as much, or are the Ukrainians losing more comms equipment? And what do you mean by comms equipment?
Okay, so Ukraine is very likely destroying probably just as much comms equipment. Okay, so comms equipment is kind of like a catch-all category, and I give all the footage to a guy who analyzes it. He's doing his own research with it. He's trying to track like the evolution of what equipment is used over time. But at this point, it seems like everybody uses the same thing. So there's really like a few different types of comms equipment. So there's some of it is like literally just communication equipment where they like stuff that you talk to each other with, like relays for radio equipment and stuff like that. So that's kind of like not something that I would particularly care too much about. Like, I'm sure the guys care, but then there's the drone comms equipment, which is critical. Like, there's one antenna in particular that the Russians love to destroy. I believe it's called an Avenger. I think the antenna is called an Avenger. It costs around $3,000, and it does like long range, low frequency radio transmission, and they're most commonly used with like the heavy bomber drones, and Russia loves blowing those things up. So those would like take out your ability to fly like a vampire drone. Or
Is it the ANTWQ? No, that's the Avenger. That's the actual. No, that's his thing that's on the back of a thingy. Just trying to find it. Here it is.
Like it's like it's kind of like, it's like the size of like an iPhone or something. Like it's like this little antenna. I think it's called an Avenger. I'm not sure. It costs like $3,000. My friend had his destroyed, and I bought him, and well, I didn't buy it all, but I gave him money to buy a new one. I couldn't afford the whole thing. It's so expensive. That's stupid little antenna.
Avenger booster 2.4 gig, 5.8 G remote antenna for booster for quadcopters. I don't know if that would be it.
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
If you look at the images, I can probably tell you. It's like a little like cell phone sized thing with a big A on the front.
Right.
It's like a little rectangle. Yeah, it's that one. Yeah,
this one.
Yeah, that guy. Those things. Yeah.
Right.
They're blowing those up left and right. It's like boom.
Yeah.
They're for drones though. Yeah.
So
also there's other stuff too. Other similar things for controlling drones, like even lower frequency stuff for the really long range drones. And a lot of it's drones though. They're going after drone pilots.
So someone says, like, quite, jaw-droppingly, wait, you're tracking damage to things the size of cell phones.
Yeah, but they're not cell phones. They're like,
yeah, but you're able to like see that on a picture and say, right, they've destroyed an Avenger, like, a thing that's this big.
Yeah, I mean they do it like 20 times a day.
Yeah.
Like you just see it, you're like, oh, there's another one. There's three more. They're going after drone pilots. That's really the thing. They're trying to take out the drone pilots.
Yeah. So they're both doing that. Both sides are doing that. Is there any sense of comparative success there? Like who's doing a better job of going after drone pilots? We know that the Ukrainians are using guided glide bombs to do that. They're hammers and GBUs and whatnot. So that's how important it is that they'll spend. Like a hammer AASM is worth what, $230,000 or whatever it is for one of the. I mean, they're expensive, but they're really good. But that's how useful these drone teams are. Who's having more success?
You have to look at it like this: like the way that they post videos is kind of like a culture. Think about it like okay, so I'll use the analogy of rap. Okay, you have the East Coast rappers and the West Coast rappers, and they each have their own style. The West Coast rappers are more like smooth, and the East Coast rappers are more like a little bit harder. So anyway, that's the way they are. There's different like cultural contexts for the way that they publish the videos. And the way that the Russians publish, they like publishing a little bit of everything. They like saying, like, here's some comms equipment. Here's an armored vehicle. Here's some pickup trucks. They like just mixing it all together in like a little soup. Whereas the Ukrainians, they like showing, like, here's 3 vehicles and then a whole bunch of infantry. They're like, the Ukrainians love showing off their infantry. They're like, we hit this guy, we hit that guy, we hit that guy. That's like, this is like, they have their own ways of, publishing
Flexing
content. So, and this bears out. So like the Ukrainians, they don't really care about comms equipment. And I don't mean on like a military level. I mean, like, in the way that they edit video, like it's not like it's like filler that they put in between like the stuff they care about. So they're like we hit this guy, we hit that guy, and this comms equipment, and that guy and that guy. That's kind of the way they edit. Whereas the Russians, they have a dedicated comms equipment part of the video. They're like, we showed here's some vehicles, here's some comms equipment, and also the thing that you're not seeing because I don't publish it, but they also have a dedicated part of the video where they shoot down drones. So there will be like 10-second period where they hit like 5 comms equipment, and then like a 10-second period where they shoot down like 5 vampire drones, and they do it in every video. They just like boom, boom, boom. That's the, like, in the mind of a Russian, your video has to have vehicles, comms equipment, and drones. And if it doesn't, it doesn't count.
And are they shooting quite a lot of vampire drones down? But then I suppose if they're shooting lots down, then the Ukrainians have a lot and they're using a lot.
Yeah. We're getting like 100 interceptions a day, something like that.
Of vampire?
Of all interceptions. And then like, I don't really count them. It's like, it fluctuates every day. So it's like probably like 30 of them are like Ukrainian interceptions and like 70 are like Russian interceptions. Like we're getting like 100 a day though, something like that.
Wow. So that's added onto your load that you already had of the other stuff. So the other stuff still exists. And then this is a new thing, interceptor drones. And now you're getting, wow. So it's just even more work for you guys to do.
Yeah, and then, and also like, there's interceptions with like Furia drones, like Fly Eyes, stuff like that. And then there's vampire drones and Kajans and Pegasus drones, that sort of thing. And then there's like Mavics and sometimes like FPV drones.
And are the Ukrainians still using vampire drones effectively? Because they were, that was a real problem for the Russians, and there was an asymmetry there where the Ukrainians had more and were using them more effectively.
Oh yeah, they're very effective, and they're terrified of vampire drones. They're absolutely terrified. And I think that's why they like spend all day shooting comms equipment.
That's a dots I was joining there. Yeah, because that's like, look what we've done. Those bastards we take. Yeah. Interesting. Well, look, Andrew, thank you for that. And Kevin, sorry, not Kevin, Rick, the Ukrainian's come on and said, "Where's Jonathan Fink? He's just gone. He had to go and pick up his kid." But we were just talking about stuff. Shouldn't it breeze? Look, Andrew, thank you very much for your appearance here. Thank you for all the work you do. As I always like to say, it's super important. So you can go and support Andrew by buy me a coffee on his map and whatnot, or you can also support our campaign at the moment for drones through Jigger's Paw. At the moment we're up to almost $10,000 for this month's campaign, so if you can help out with that, that would be absolutely wonderful. It's atpgeo.com/donate. But yeah, thank you everyone in the live stream. You are all legends, and thanks to the mods. Thanks to the members, etc. No, I'm not dismissively saying that, etc. No, thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Final words, mate.
No, thanks for having me.
Cool.
By the way,
yeah.
if you're interested, I did a podcast with David Axe a few days ago.
Oh, what from Forbes? And he's now writing, I think, for Euromaidan, is he as well? Someone anyway.
It's on his Substack. So if you.
Yes, and I will check that out then, and throw that around. So it's David. Send me a link if you can, mate, and I'll go through that. Cool, nice one. Okay, I will talk about that then. I'll check that out and talk about that in one of my next ones. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Speak to you soon. I have a military aid news video coming out, which I've recorded. I leave you some time to go and have a very long cup of tea and a dip in the ocean or something. But I'll release that later on today. Take care, and I'll speak to you all soon.